It started with a whisper. Then a murmur. Then outright panic. Across the entire galactic community, from the warlike Kazan Dominion to the coldly logical Clax technocracy, a single, devastating update sent every major empire into utter hysteria. The Galactic database had just reclassified Earth. New status. Don't even think about it. No explanation. No reasoning. Just those 5 words. Armadas that had been preparing for invasion suddenly halted mid-flight. War councils convened in secret, debating whether to nuke Earth before it was too late. Even the most hardened mercenaries, battle-tested killers with blood-soaked histories, refused contracts that involved Earth. And then came the final revelation. When a rogue hacker tried to override the restriction on Earth's classification, the database returned only one phrase. We ran the numbers. You will lose. Every single time. The galaxy had only one question left. What the hell did the humans do? A silence stretched across the chamber, thick with unease. The Council, an assembly of the most powerful rulers in the galaxy, stared at the flickering holographic display in front of them. The message was simple, cold, and absolute. New classification update, Earth. Status, don't even think about it. No explanation. No context. Just those 5 words. Lord Zalvorn's mandibles clicked sharply, his crimson eyes narrowing. This is a joke. His voice, low and venomous, rippled through the room. A clerical error. A pathetic human trick. No one responded. Across from him, Grand Strategist Velcor of the Clax technocracy sat rigid, his exoskeletal fingers frozen over his personal datapad. He had seen the numbers. Every intelligence network had tried to override the restriction, to pull data on Earth, and every single one had returned the same grim result. We ran the numbers. You will lose. Every single time. I don't accept this. Zalvorn slammed a fist onto the table, the impact echoing through the chamber. Earth is a pre-FTL civilization. They are ants beneath our feet. Velcor's mechanical voice rasped through the chamber. Then tell me, War Master, why did every predictive AI refuse to analyze Earth? Why do our spies who inquire into human history return with shattered minds? His dark cybernetic eyes locked onto Zalvorn. Why does the database, a system that has governed galactic intelligence for thousands of years, list Earth in the same classification as cosmic extinction events? The chamber fell deathly still. Councillor Tvek of the Roger Dominion, usually the loudest advocate for expansion, exhaled slowly. I sent 2 infiltration teams to Earth, he admitted, voice uncharacteristically hesitant. Highly trained. Cloaked in stealth suits with neural dampeners. Both teams vanished. Dead? Zalvorn scoffed. No, Tvek said. His voice wavered. Not dead. Vanished. Every tracker ceased transmitting. Their emergency signals? Disabled. As if they never existed. And the most terrifying part? His scaled fingers tightened into a fist. A week later, I received an encrypted message from Earth. No visuals. No location trace. Zalvorn narrowed his eyes. What did it say? Tvek swallowed. It was one sentence. His claws drummed against the table. Nice try. Don't do it again. A cold hush settled over the room. Zalvorn sneered. Coincidence. An intercepted signal. Psychological warfare. The Khazari Empire. Velcor interrupted, his synthetic voice almost a whisper. They were one of the first species to expand beyond the galactic core. Their archives mention Earth. Classified files buried under forgotten wars. He turned his head slightly. I sent a deep space probe to extract the data. He paused. Zalvorn scowled. And? Velcor leaned forward. His voice, for the first time in centuries, trembled. It never returned. A tense silence hung over the chamber. Councillor Jorah of the Vasquine Armada, an empire renowned for its military conquests, finally spoke. We are overthinking this. If the database refuses to give us information, we will force the answer. She turned to Zalvorn. You command the largest fleet in the Council. You control planetary siege weaponry. If Earth holds a threat, we eliminate it. Velkor's cybernetic fingers curled against the table. You fool! You wish to provoke the one force the galaxy cannot quantify? Jorah's 4 eyes gleamed. I do not fear an enemy that cannot be measured. Velkor stared at her, then exhaled, his circuits humming. You should. Tvek shifted uneasily. We are making a mistake. Jorah ignored him. We launched the fleet. Zalvorn stood, his plated armor gleaming beneath the artificial light. We burn Earth to the ground. A deep, synthetic chime resonated through the chamber. Every display flickered. The database interface appeared, its AI-generated voice calm, toneless. Warning! This action is not advised. The council chamber froze. Jorah exhaled sharply. The database does not dictate our wars. This action will result in total operational failure. Zalvorn bared his fangs. We are the Galactic High Council. We do not fear a single planet. There was a pause. And then, the database responded. You should. The lights flickered. The screens distorted, flooding with raw data, fractured images, ancient battlefields, vanished civilizations, ghost ships floating in the void, and the haunting whisper of 1,000 lost wars. And then, it stopped. The chamber remained silent, the database interface gone, the air thick with something more than fear. Dread. Zalvorn clenched his jaw. Prepare the fleet. We attack at dawn. Velkor stood. If you do this, I will not stand with you. Jorah's expression twisted in contempt. Then stand aside, coward. Tvek exhaled, his reptilian gaze flicking to the last remnant of the database's warning. Then, without a word, he turned and walked out. Velkor lingered for a moment, looking at the others. Then he too left, his mechanical footsteps echoing through the chamber. The remaining warlords grinned at each other. The invasion of Earth had begun. And deep within the galactic database, unseen by all, the system executed one final process. Recalculating outcome. Humanity, inevitable. Error, intervention will result in total dominance. Processing. Processing. Conclusion, don't even think about it. The bridge of the Vindicator, Zalvorn's flagship, hummed with the electric tension of an impending battle. The fleet was in position. Thousands of warships, dreadnoughts, and siege cruisers encircled Sol system, their targeting arrays locking onto the small blue planet below. Confirm planetary scans, Zalvorn barked, standing at the heart of the command deck. Scans complete. His second-in-command, Captain Ralzek, responded. Minimal planetary defenses. Their largest weapons are projectile-based, nothing that could breach our energy shields. No signs of planetary shields, no quantum artillery, no interstellar fleet. Pathetic. Zalvorn's mandibles curled in contempt. They are an infestation that has been allowed to fester. We exterminate them today. A communications officer flinched as his console flickered with a warning signal. Sir, we have an incoming transmission. From where? The officer hesitated. Earth. Silence. Zalvorn's crimson eyes gleamed. Put it through. A voice, clear and calm, filled the bridge. A human voice. To the so-called High Warlord of the Kazan Dominion. The voice began, smooth yet dripping with an undercurrent of mockery. This is Captain Elias Cade of the Terran Defense Initiative. If you're hearing this, that means you've just made the dumbest mistake in your species' history. The officers exchanged uneasy glances. Zalvorn sneered. Empty words. He gestured. Open a return channel. Captain Cade, he said, his voice thick with condescension. You are outmatched. Your people are primitive. Surrender and I may grant mercy. Laughter. The human laughed. You really don't get it, do you? Cade's voice was almost amused. You think this is a battle. You think this is about firepower. Let me explain what's about to happen, so you're not too surprised when your fleet gets reduced to space dust. Ralzek bared his fangs. Insolent, Cade continued unbothered. Right now, your fleet's entire comm system is compromised. It happened the moment you locked onto Earth. Some kid in a basement back home probably rerouted your tactical data feeds for fun. We don't even need a military AI. A couple of caffeine-fueled hackers are already making sure your targeting systems think your own ships are enemy combatants. Zalvorn's fists clenched. Bluff. Then there's the economic side of things, Cade went on. You idiots clearly didn't check who owns half the damn intergalactic market before launching an invasion. Our stock traders are running economic war games as we speak. By the time your warships reach low orbit, your entire empire's economy will be in freefall. Enough! Zalvorn roared. This is nonsense. Oh no, it gets better, Cade said cheerfully. See, unlike most of the species you've conquered, we don't play fair. Our engineers reverse-engineered one of your probes last week. Turns out your energy shielding runs on a predictable frequency cycle. He paused. We've been adjusting. Zalvorn turned to his tactical officers. Check our energy shields. Now. A frantic beeping filled the command deck. Ralzek's face twisted in horror. Our shielding is degrading. We're reading interference spikes across every frequency. Cade's voice grew darker. Here's the part where you should start panicking. We haven't even fired a single shot yet. Zalvorn snarled. Deploy planetary siege weapons. We raise them now. Too late. The words hit like a hammer. The fleet's main artillery fizzled out. The massive siege cannons, meant to burn continents to ash, were offline. Impossible! Ralzek shouted. Weapon systems are disabled? No, they're being overridden. Cade sighed dramatically. I told you. We don't play fair. Then the real hell began. The Vindicator lurched violently as a detonation rippled across its hull. Across the fleet, warships turned on each other, their targeting systems suddenly hijacked. Sir, our ships they're attacking us! An officer screamed. On the holographic battle map, chaos unfolded. The entire Kazan fleet was turning its weapons on itself, launching torpedoes, firing rail cannons, blasting one another apart as if possessed. Cade's voice was the last thing they heard before communications collapsed. I really hoped you'd listen to the database's warning. A sigh. Well, good luck. Then the transmission cut. The screams started immediately. Hull breach! We've lost control of dreadnought units. Sir, our fleet is collapsing. Zalvorn's heart pounded. This was impossible. This was beyond reason. Ralzek, eyes wide with terror, whispered what the entire bridge now understood. They never needed weapons. The Vindicator shook violently as another explosion ripped through its command deck. Zalvorn staggered. He turned, fury consuming his features. We're not done! We fight! But no one listened. The Kazan fleet was in full retreat, not out of tactics, not out of survival instinct. Out of fear. Zalvorn's body trembled as he watched his unstoppable armada collapse in less than 10 minutes. This wasn't war. It was a slaughter. One of his officers, trembling, turned towards him. Sir, what do we do? The words burned his pride. But he had no choice. We run. The retreat order was given. What remained of the mighty Kazan fleet, once the terror of the stars, fled like frightened children from the planet they had underestimated. On Earth, the people went about their day, completely unaware that they had just won an intergalactic war. In the depths of the galactic database, the system recalculated. Intervention result: absolute failure. Status: Earth, don't even think about it. Zalvorn, humiliated and defeated, slumped into his command chair, his entire empire crumbling around him. And deep in the black void of space, a single human voice echoed through the remnants of their shattered communications. Told you. The war was over before it even began. The Kazan fleet, once the most feared armada in the galaxy, was in full retreat. What was meant to be a planetary annihilation had turned into a nightmare of self-inflicted destruction, all orchestrated by a species that was supposed to be primitive. Zalvorn's warship burned. Flames licked at the shattered remains of the command deck as klaxons blared in a desperate, futile warning. His officers were either dead or had abandoned ship. Yet he remained, fists clenched, teeth grinding. He had never lost. He had conquered worlds, broken civilizations, turned entire species into ash, and now, in a single hour, everything he had built was gone. A garbled transmission cut through the static. All remaining ships, this is Grand War Leader Zalvorn. Rally to me. We do not retreat. We crush them. Silence. The comms officer was dead. The bridge was empty. The fleet was gone. He was alone. A slow, deliberate sound filled his ears. Clapping. Zalvorn turned, fury burning through his veins. The holographic projection flickered to life, revealing the one man responsible for his downfall, Captain Elias Cade. Wow, Cade said, arms crossed. That was pathetic. Zalvorn's claws dug into the armrests of his throne. You! His voice was a growl, more feral than speech. You cheated. Cade grinned. Damn right we did. You hacked my fleet, stole my weapons, turned my own ships against me. You think this is war? Cade shrugged. No. This was an execution. Zalvorn lunged forward. Fight me! Man to man! Warrior to warrior! Cade's smirk didn't waver. You still don't get it. He leaned forward. You never had a chance. Zalvorn's breathing was ragged, his heart hammering against his ribcage. His empire was falling apart. His army gone. His name, once whispered in terror across the stars, would now be a joke. He would not accept this. A beeping noise caught his attention. His warship's main display flickered, and a single notification burned across the screen. Remote access detected. System override in progress. Zalvorn's eyes widened. What? Cade's grin widened. Oh yeah? Forgot to mention. That big, scary flagship you're sitting in? He tilted his head. Yeah, we own it now. The warlord slammed his fist against the console. Impossible! The ship shuddered. The engines whined as the navigation system forcibly recalibrated. The entire vessel, once the pride of the Kazan Dominion, was now under human control. Good news, buddy, Cade said cheerfully. You're about to become the first warlord in history to be personally delivered to the Galactic High Council for trial. Zalvorn let out a roar of pure rage. I will not be caged like an animal. You burned entire planets. You butchered entire species. And now? Cade's voice turned ice cold. Now you're just a prisoner. The ship's auto-navigation locked in a course. Destination, Galactic Core. Zalvorn's claws trembled. He had to do something. Anything. He reached for his sidearm, one last chance, one final act of defiance. The gun locked. Zalvorn's blood turned to ice. Cade sighed. Yeah, we hacked that too. The warlord collapsed back into his seat, his breath ragged, his mind unraveling. This was worse than death. Worse than execution. He had been defeated. By humans. Cade stood from his chair, stretching lazily. Well, this has been fun. See you at your war crimes trial. The transmission cut out. The ship hummed, a silent executioner, dragging him toward his final humiliation. Zalvorn screamed. Across the stars, the message spread. The Kazan Dominion, once invincible, had been crushed without a single human casualty. Empires took notice. Warlords retracted their forces. Galactic superpowers erased Earth from their conquest plans. The database's warning was no longer questioned. Earth classification, don't even think about it. No one ever would. The Galactic High Council chamber was filled with hushed voices, an atmosphere thick with tension. The fall of the Kazan Dominion had sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Warlords who once saw Earth as ripe for conquest were now erasing its name from their war maps. Governments scrambled to rewrite policies, retreating from the idea of even mentioning humanity in military discussions. At the head of the chamber, the Supreme Arbiter's 4 golden eyes flickered with unreadable emotion as she watched the holographic projection before her. A single Kazan dreadnought, once the terror of 1,000 battles, now floated toward the galactic core, on autopilot. Its pilot? Grand War Leader Zalvorn, bound, humiliated, defeated. The room was deathly silent as the dreadnought's docking sequence began. High-ranking officials, some of the most powerful beings in the universe, stood in collective disbelief. A voice crackled through the chamber's comms. "Yo, council folks!" The voice was human, calm, almost lazy, but laced with an unmistakable edge. "I think you misplaced one of your warlords. Thought I'd return him." The chamber erupted in murmurs. The Supreme Arbiter raised a hand, silencing them instantly. "Identify yourself." The voice didn't hesitate. "Captain Elias Cade, Terran Defense Initiative." A pause. "But you already knew that." A slow, mechanical hum filled the room. The database's AI interface flickered to life, its synthetic voice smooth and cold. "Identity confirmed. Elias Cade. Humanity designation, High Threat Operative." The murmurs grew into a roar of unease. A Rogger commander stepped forward, her reptilian tail twitching. "This is an act of aggression. You hold one of our highest warlords as a prisoner." "He came to kill us," Cade cut in. "We just returned the favor." Tvek, one of the few remaining warlords still standing, hissed. "You can't expect us to believe that one planet, one species, could cripple the entire Kazan fleet without casualties." "Yeah, about that," Cade said. "Turns out you all really underestimated how stubborn we are." Silence. "Your kind thrives on overwhelming force," Cade continued. "You march into every battle thinking bigger fleets and bigger guns mean victory." He exhaled. "We don't fight like that. We never have." The Supreme Arbiter's gaze darkened. "Then how?" Cade chuckled. "You ever seen a bunch of sleep-deprived human engineers hyped up on caffeine and spite? No? Well, your entire fleet just did." A nervous exchange of glances spread across the room. Jorah, the Vaskine commander, leaned forward, sneering. "You manipulated systems. Hacked networks. This was deception, not war." Cade's tone didn't shift. "You invaded a planet with billions of people, expecting an easy slaughter." His voice sharpened. "There was nothing fair about what you planned to do. So why should we play fair?" Velcor, ever the strategist, finally spoke. "What do you want, Captain Cade?" A long pause. Then, "A message." The holographic feed flickered. The Kazan dreadnought's bay doors hissed open, revealing a single figure. Zalvorn. Or at least, what remained of him. Once an imposing warlord, he now looked hollowed out, his armor scorched, his once mighty form battered and broken. He stepped forward, without a word, falling to his knees in the center of the chamber. The warlord who had burned civilizations had surrendered. Gasps filled the chamber. A slow, dreadful realization settled into the minds of every leader present. This wasn't just a defeat. This was a warning. Cade's voice was calm, unshaken. "The next time any of you even think about invading Earth, remember what happened here today." Zalvorn shuddered. He looked up, his voice a whisper. Listen to him. Even Jorah, hardened and proud, took a step back. Cade sighed. "I could have sent that dreadnought straight into your sun. Could have wiped out your entire damn war council." His voice dropped, the amusement fading. "But I didn't. Because unlike you, humans don't go around massacring entire planets for fun." The Supreme Arbiter's expression remained unreadable. "And if we refuse to acknowledge this message?" Cade chuckled. "Then I'd be real curious to see what happens when you push us further." No one spoke. The database's interface flickered. Processing. Threat assessment updated. The Supreme Arbiter's golden eyes narrowed. "What is the update?" The AI's response was absolute. "Humanity, inevitable." A chill rippled through the chamber. Cade's voice was almost playful. Glad we're on the same page. The connection cut. The chamber was left in silence. The Supreme Arbiter exhaled, looking at the shattered warlord at her feet. She turned to the assembled council, her voice final, absolute. Earth is off limits. One by one, the warlords, former conquerors, former rulers of the stars, nodded. No one would ever make the mistake of underestimating humanity again. The database warning remained. Earth classification, don't even think about it. And no one ever did. The silence in the Galactic High Council chamber was suffocating. Every ruler, warlord, and commander present understood the weight of what had just transpired. The Kazan Dominion had fallen. Their greatest warlord, Zalvorn, sat on his knees, broken, humiliated, defeated. And humanity, a species once dismissed as primitive, had just declared themselves off limits with a single act of war that was never fought with weapons, but with something far more terrifying. No one dared to speak. Finally, the Supreme Arbiter stood. Her golden eyes swept over the assembled leaders, her voice calm, measured. It is decided. Earth will remain untouched. Any violation of this decree will be seen as an act of madness. There were no objections. Even the most ambitious warlord sat in grim acceptance. Velcor, the strategist, folded his cybernetic hands. And what of humanity's place in the galactic order? They have not asked for alliance. They have not sought power. Do we simply ignore them? The Supreme Arbiter exhaled. No. A pause. We fear them. Across the table, the representatives of empires that had once waged wars spanning entire star systems nodded in silent agreement. Jorah, the Vaskine war commander, clenched her jaw. Fear? Is this what we are reduced to? A ruling body cowering before a species that has yet to expand beyond their own system? Velcor's gaze locked onto her. Then tell me, Jorah. Would you dare to test them? The Vaskine warrior's mouth opened, then shut. The answer was clear. Tvek, the Raga lord, rubbed his scaled chin. What if they do not stay on Earth? What if they come for us? The question hung in the air like a funeral shroud. The Supreme Arbiter did not hesitate. Then we will have no choice but to accept them. Not as allies. Not as enemies. But as something far beyond our control. No one argued. The conversation was over. The database warning remained unchanged. Earth classification, don't even think about it. The transmission cut, leaving Captain Elias Cade watching from his ship's command deck. The finality of it settled in. He let out a slow breath, rolling his shoulders as he leaned back in his chair. Behind him, Lieutenant Avery smirked. Well, that was easy. Cade snorted. Define easy. Didn't fire a single shot, she pointed out. We destroyed an entire empire without firing a single shot, Cade corrected. And now we're the one species in the universe everyone else is too scared to mess with. Avery grinned. Neat. The comms console blinked. A private channel. He accepted the transmission. Captain Cade, came the familiar voice of General Dawson, head of the Terran Defense Initiative. It's done. Cade exhaled. It's done. And Zalvorn? Cade smirked. Delivered. Wrapped up in a neat little bow. Dawson's chuckle was low, approving. I doubt they'll be making another move on Earth anytime soon. They won't. You sure? Cade's smirk widened. Let's just say, they got the message. There was a pause on the line. Then Dawson spoke again, quieter this time. You realize what this means, don't you? Cade knew exactly what he meant. For centuries, humanity had been the underdog. The unknown variable. The forgotten backwater species in the vast cosmic arena. That ended today. Now they weren't just another planet. Now they weren't just another species. Now they were the apex predators of the stars. And the rest of the galaxy? They knew it. Dawson's voice was steady. This changes everything. Cade's gaze drifted out to the stars. Yeah. A long pause. Then, with a smirk. Good. The transmission ended. Avery crossed her arms. So, what now? Cade cracked his knuckles. Now? He turned toward her, a glint of amusement in his eyes. We go home. As their ship turned toward Earth, the galaxy trembled. They had seen what humans were capable of. They knew the warning would remain forever. Earth classification, don't even think about it. And no one ever did.